Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to crack open some really interesting sources and pull out the key insights for you. Today, we're diving into a feeling I think that resonates deeply with so many of you listening. It's that persistent sense of maybe falling behind.
Mhm.
You know the one I mean, where the traditional life stuff like getting married, owning a home, just feels, well, increasingly out of reach. Have you ever felt that? Like you're watching this timeline you thought was yours just sort of vanish. They're definitely complex, often frustrating, I know, but the material we've looked at, it clearly shows there's a much bigger story here, a systemic one.
Yeah, that feeling is incredibly pervasive. And what our sources consistently highlight, and this is important, is that it's absolutely not about individual shortcomings. It's not like people aren't trying hard enough. Our mission, really, with this deep dive is to unpack the evidence. And the evidence argues that the very rules for what defines adulthood, well, they've fundamentally changed. What used to be considered, a normal, achievable path for someone who's, say, 30. For many now, it's become nearly unattainable. So we're going to explore the specific systemic factors driving this massive shift. And, crucially, look at what our sources suggest might be alternative ways, maybe more fulfilling ways, of defining success today.
Okay, let's get into that because some of the numbers are truly stark. Our research points to this dramatic statistical reality. Think about this. Back in the 1960s, a staggering 50% half of 30-year-olds were married and owned their own homes.
50%. Yeah.
Fast forward to today. And that number, it's plummeted. It's only about 10%.
That's 10%.
That's not just a subtle shift, is it? It feels like a seismic redefinition of what we thought was the standard path.
It really is. And what's fascinating, or maybe alarming, is how dramatically the goalposts have moved in just, a couple of generations. It truly highlights that what was once pretty common for 30-year-olds is now, it's the exception. This isn't a minor tweak. It's a fundamental transformation of what normal adulthood even looks like. It's almost like the societal map we were handed just disappeared.
Right. So with that kind of massive shift as the backdrop, what do our sources suggest are the main drivers behind, say, the decline in marriage rates first?
Well, there are some significant cultural currents at play here. For one, we're seeing evolving gender dynamics. Expectations for partnership are definitely shifting away from those traditional roles. And sometimes that makes finding alignment, harder for some people.
Yeah.
Then there's the rise of certain online communities. Things like the manosphere or red pill ideologies you hear about. These are online groups often promoting anti-feminist views or teaching men maybe to distrust women. And obviously, those kinds of narratives don't exactly foster the genuine connection needed for marriage. In fact, our sources suggest they can actively discourage it.
And tying into that, I guess, is how dating itself has changed. Dating apps, for instance. Our source describes how they've kind of transformed dating into this almost superficial shopping experience.
Exactly.
Like shopping.
It feels like a bad Amazon algorithm for romance sometimes, often skewed to favor a really small percentage of people, which leaves a lot of others feeling excluded or devalued. That's a great analogy. And beyond those cultural bits, financial stress plays a huge, absolutely undeniable role. You have couples who genuinely want to get married, but they're just struggling under the weight of debt, sky-high rent, unstable work environments. It puts immense pressure on things. And then there's what one source calls a fear culture. Social media seems to amplify divorce horror stories, right? Which can make the whole idea of marriage feel incredibly risky for some people.
Yeah, that definitely paints a picture. Multiple pressures sort of squeezing relationships. And that same pressure, maybe even more acutely, seems to be pushing homeownership further and further away. For many, the numbers here are just, they're wild. Houses used to cost maybe 3 times an average salary.
Right, around that ballpark.
Today, in many major cities, we're talking 10 times or even more. Wages have basically flatlined, while housing costs have just exploded.
And this brings up that huge question of affordability, doesn't it? Debt is a massive factor, student loans especially. They just drain the savings that might otherwise go towards a down payment. And then, just when you think you might be getting ahead, high interest rates kick in. They can potentially double the cost of a mortgage compared to just a few years back.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting, according to our sources. They point fingers at corporate landlords, Big investment firms like BlackRock, other hedge funds, they're actively buying up starter homes. They can swoop in, outbid regular buyers with cash offers, and then they bundle these properties for rental income.
Ah, so they're changing the market dynamics.
Fundamentally shifting it, yeah. From ownership towards investment, they're effectively turning potential first homes into rental units, locking people into essentially lifelong renting.
And it creates that frustrating geography trap too, doesn't it? It feels like this forced choice between advancing your career and finding somewhere you can actually afford to live. The good jobs, the higher paying ones, they're often clustered in these incredibly expensive cities. But the affordable housing, that's often in areas with lower wages and maybe fewer opportunities. It's like an impossible bind.
Exactly. It's an impossible bind. And this leads directly to what our source calls a vicious cycle. If you don't have financial stability, it often delays marriage. Okay, no marriage or maybe no dual income. Well, that makes affording a home even harder. No home. That can delay starting a family. Each missing piece just makes the others harder to slot into place. And all of this fuels this deep sense of generational frustration. It really makes you question that whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps idea, doesn't it?
It really does. So, okay, this all sounds pretty grim, I have to say. But here's where the bigger picture argument comes in, the one presented in our sources. The central idea is that this isn't about you failing, or Gen Z being lazy, or people not trying hard enough. Not at all. Instead, it's described as a systemic betrayal. That's the term used. A situation where the basic structures, the opportunities that once defined a pathway to adulthood, they've been deliberately altered. Often, the argument goes for the benefit of a relative few, leaving many others behind. The core idea being politicians, corporations, elites, they change the rules of the game, often for profit.
And what's really crucial to grasp here, I think, is that while our sources absolutely acknowledge these deep systemic problems, they also stress something else, the importance of gratitude for modern conveniences. I mean, we do have incredible advancements in technology, medicine, access to information, things previous generations couldn't dream of. And perhaps even more importantly, they stress not measuring your self-worth by these outdated timelines or milestones that, frankly, are just no longer accessible to the majority.
Okay, that's a really important counterpoint. So if this traditional game, as the sources argue, is maybe fundamentally rigged or at least drastically changed, what's the alternative path? What does that mean for you listening right now?
Yeah, the core message seems to be you have to actively choose to play a different game. It's about refocusing, maybe prioritizing things like freedom, mobility, creativity,
Uh-huh.
actually designing a personal life script that exists outside those traditional markers of success. What could that look like? Well, maybe pursuing a portfolio career, different income streams instead of one single job for life, maybe embracing geo arbitrage, finding smart, affordable ways to live well, maybe somewhere else in the world even, or prioritizing community-based living, perhaps, sharing resources to reduce individual financial burdens and building a really strong support network. The underlying idea is about prioritizing experiences, maybe, over just accumulating traditional assets, building a life that's resilient, adaptable to these new realities we're facing.
So wrapping this up then, what we've explored today really highlights that for so many people, especially younger generations, the struggles with traditional adulthood milestones, they aren't really due to laziness or some kind of individual failure.
Not at all.
They seem to be the direct result of these significant systemic shifts. It's like the game itself has been re-rigged. Just think about that statistic again. 50% of 30-year-olds married and owning homes in the 1960s compared to only about 10% today. It really underscores that powerful argument from our sources, this idea of a systemic betrayal, where the rules got changed by politicians, corporations, elites, often, for profit. So the question for you is, how does this reframing alter your understanding of success, maybe your own personal timelines?
Right. Given everything we've unpacked, it seems clear the traditional game for adulthood is fundamentally different now, maybe even rigged, as the sources suggest. And this means the real challenge, but also maybe the real opportunity for you, lies in designing that personal life script. One that truly prioritizes things like freedom, mobility, creativity, whatever matters most to you. And while you're navigating these new realities, figuring out your path, it's probably good to remember to appreciate the modern conveniences we do have, be grateful for those. But also, maybe ask yourself this. What does it actually mean for you to truly succeed on your own terms in this new landscape? And how might you start playing a different, maybe more fulfilling game instead of just chasing a script that, for many, simply doesn't exist anymore?